Faith on Film, a program designed to keep you and help you to stay aware of everything that's happening in the world of faith and family films. I have a very exciting guest today because he's done something that I've always considered very difficult in the faith-based genre, and that's comedy. Because by nature, comedy can be a little bit irreverent. You're making fun of people, and a lot of times these Christian folks just seem to get offended by that. But when you can pull it off, like I think my guest did, I think you're going to really enjoy the movie. Christopher Shawn Shaw is an award-winning filmmaker and owner of Anchor Productions. He helmed the recently released redemptive comedy Church People, starring Thor, Ramsey, and Erin Cahill. I hope I said that name right. He can correct me if I didn't. Featuring Stephen Baldwin William, Billy Baldwin, Chynna, Phillips, Michael Monks, Donald Faison, Joey Fatone, and more. Gosh, he's got an all-star cast in this movie. In between freelance film productions, Christopher helps businesses, organizations, and individuals increase their visibility with high-quality and memorable video content, consulting and coaching, branding, and social media strategies. Christopher, welcome to Faith on Film.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm very excited about the movie that you're doing right now, and I really would love for our audience to know all about it. But before we do that, usually on this program, the first segment we dedicate to finding out who you are, who Christopher is. How'd you get started in filmmaking? So just take the next 5 minutes and give us an insight into Christopher Shawn Shaw.
Well, my story starts in the womb. Do we have time? Okay,
we can move forward a bit. We can move forward a bit.
I'll fast forward a little bit. So basically, as a kid, I was fascinated by films, loved films. I watched Tim Conway and Don Knotts, and I don't know if you remember the film Private Eyes, where they played private investigators, which was hilarious. And I always loved watching like behind the scenes and stuff. So I was enamored with film and filmmaking. However, I wanted to be a movie star. I loved the idea of being on the big screen. Mm-hmm. And so that was my aspiration for years and years. I even went to college. Shout out to Otterbein College, which is now university actually. But when I was there, it was Otterbein College. I was a Bachelor of Fine Arts in their theater performance line of classes, that was where my passion was acting. Okay. But during those years, and then even years after college, I found myself more and more behind the camera, and enjoying that more. I remember there was a period of time though, like especially when I was in college, I had one of those VHS slim cams. It was like 4.5 pounds, one of those really light ones. I remember those. And that was really nice. And it took really good footage for standard definition VHS, you know. But I remember, you know, because I get these ideas for shots and scenes. And so I'd set up the camera and I'd do the camera work, but I'd also act in it. So I really wished I could have been in front of the camera and behind the camera at the exact same time. Because obviously, if I'm my own cameraman, and it's not a selfie video, what was a selfie back in the 90s, by the way. But if I'm my own cameraman, then it's
cloning one isn't available yet. Then
I didn't know the cloning trick yet. On camera or off. But yeah, so I would set up a static shot and then I would act in front of it. But over the years, I found myself more and more wanting to be behind the camera. And I grew up in Ohio in a very small village. Literally, it's not a town or a city. It's the village of Plainfield. Shout out to Plainfield, Ohio peeps. Less than 200 people, if I'm not mistaken. And anyway, so I grew up there. I went to college in Westerville, which is right near Columbus. And then after college, several months after college, I moved to Southern California initially. I now reside with my family in Northern California. But so yeah, I was enamored with filmmaking, and over the years, I did extra work in movies and TV shows and stuff like that, and music videos. But over the years, I found myself wanting to be behind the camera more.
Now,
So
were you a
now
believer
I'm
back then?
primarily, what's that?
Were you a believer back then? Were you a Christian?
Yes, very shallow, but on my way to learning more. If memory serves, I got saved when I was in junior high. Actually, I was part of a youth group, and the youth group went to Billy Graham Evangelistic Association movie. And in the movie, the characters in the movie attended the Billy Graham crusade, and during his call for people to come forward, I remember sitting there in the movie theater thinking, man, if I was one of those characters, I would go forward.
Oh, wow.
And lo and behold, at the end of the movie, Billy Graham comes on the screen and invites the theater audience to come forward. So I did, and I talked with a prayer counselor, and I remember leaving the screening room forgiven, clean, like I was excited, but literally the depth of my faith was like, I believe in Jesus, I'm going to heaven. That was it. Like, I have no idea what the next day looked like, you know, like I didn't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I got to read the scripture now, you know, like I'm very shallow. So for years and years I lived like that. So I was a very, very, very shallow believer.
Well,
but then after college, and I stayed in Ohio for several more months working, preparing to move out to Southern California. And during that time, I started getting really serious about my faith. I was kind of scared into it, actually. But I was really getting serious about it. And so when I moved to Southern California, one of the first things on my agenda was to find a Bible-believing church. And I landed at the Church on the Way, Pastor Jack Hayford. And I was there for a few years.
Wow. So you know what? I'm not one that feels like every Christian movie needs to have an altar call, but there's definitely value there in having an altar call in some of these movies, because look at that, it totally changed your life. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break right now, and when we come back, I want to talk about the movie that you just produced and released like a month and a half ago, I think, or so, which again tackled.
I did a movie?
You did.
Cool.
You did, and I know you've done a lot of short movies, but I think, is this your first full feature?
It's my first narrative comedy feature film, yeah. I mean, I've done some longer form docudrama type stuff years and years and years ago. But as far as like a theatrical release feature, like a traditional feature, this is my first.
All right, so when we come back, we're going to talk all about it, all right? Folks, don't go away. We'll be right back.
Ever wanted to binge watch family-friendly TV without all of the commercials? Well, as a mother of 2 young children, it's vital that I have a platform I can trust. And 24 Flicks is where I find incredible movies, shows, comedy for me and for my children as well. And for only $3.99 a month, it's a no-brainer for us. You can join other moms like me by going to 24flix.com and get your 7-day free trial.
Got a postcard from the grandkids. They went to the Ark.
Yeah. What does it say?
Well, Annie says they had a blast and that it's really, really big.
Everything looks big to a 6-year-old.
Well, Hudson says it's even bigger than the castle.
Can't be that big. Can it? Go ahead. Think bigger.
Welcome back to Faith on Film. We're here today with Christopher Shawn Shaw, who apparently gave his heart to the Lord during a movie. So there's definitely value to Christian movies, and even having altar calls in them, isn't there? Now, Shawn, though, I've noticed that you've done a lot of short films, and then you've done, and of course, some, like I said, full feature documentaries, but this is your first full feature narrative. But I did notice that most of your films are comedic. Is there a reason for that? I mean, are you a funny guy? You just want to put your personality into the movies?
Yeah, so I have a little testimony behind that too. So in 2009, I was leaving a very unhealthy living situation. I had a bunch of roommates, and I was involved in a ministry that went off the rails. And so I left the ministry house situation, and I went to live in my bachelor pad. I'm married now, thankfully, but back then in 2009, I didn't know the missus yet, and I moved into a nice, peace and quiet bachelor pad, no roommates, and I sensed the Lord was doing something in my heart, because I was a filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker, I guess you would say at that time, who had the idea that, like, if I was going to do something faith-based, and I'd already done one 168 film project, shout out to 168film.com. Fabulous way to get started in filmmaking and network at the festivals. Fabulous, highly recommend it. But I'd done one, and when my mindset back then was, well, if I'm going to do something that's faith-based, then it's got to be heavy and meaty, and the tears and the where's the meat, and and all that stuff, traditional, what you see at a lot of Christian film festivals and secular film festivals, I would imagine, is like, hey, it's their time to shine, and if they can cry, let's see it, But I sensed the Lord was changing my heart, and I felt like I need to laugh. And so, and here's the other thing too, even when I did the heavy drama thing for the 168, I was the actor in it, and I was still a quirky goofball. I'm a quirky goofball. So that still came through, and there was still like little quirky comedic elements, even in what I was trying to be like heavy hitting serious. And so anyway, I sensed the Lord was changing my heart, and I had a subscription to ChristianCinema.com. Shout out to ChristianCinema.com. And back in 2009, they were still doing the DVD mailers like Netflix does. And I went to their comedy section, and for the most part, alphabetical order, comedy section, ChristianCinema.com. Guess what's early in the alphabet? B for Bananas Comedy.
I remember that one.
Thor Ramsey.
Thor Ramsey, yep.
So I'm consuming all these Bananas Comedy DVDs, and I'm watching the extra bonus features and the behind the scenes and the interviews with the guest comics. Thor was featured on one, and Shonda Pierce came on and introduced him. And so I'm watching all these interviews and stuff, and I'm sitting there watching the intro. Thor's graphic is coming up and popping up, and I'm like, man, what would it be like to be friends with somebody like Thor Ramsey? And around that time, I started getting more connected on Facebook. And this is still 2009. So I'm getting more connected on Facebook. I'm reaching out to Christian comics like Michael Jr. and Thor Ramsey and John Branyan. Shout out to those guys. And I'm doing these quirky little goofball videos with my goldfish, Goldie the Goldfish, which you can still find. Some are on my YouTube channel. I think all of them that I edited were are on Goldie's Facebook page. Goldie the Goldfish on Facebook. Look it up. Goldy. But so I was doing these quirky little videos, and I was posting them, and I was sending them to some of the comics I was connecting with, and it caught Thor's eye. He thought the idea was funny, and he liked the aesthetic look of it. And so he reached out and sent me this like really short message on Facebook Messenger that was like, tell me about your film background, ... Like, oh, what's going on? Like, the Thor Ramsey is reaching out to me. What's he doing? Is he hosting? Is he doing a show and he's going to highlight filmmaker? Like, what's he doing? I don't know. Well, what I didn't know was he had this script called Youth Group, which later became Church People.
All right.
But he had this script called Youth Group, and he was like, well, if I'm gonna get this thing made, I'm gonna have to reach out to some filmmakers. And so he just put a feeler out. He saw my goldfish video. I'm not kidding. Like, this is what happened. And he put a feeler out. And around that time, I was preparing to go down for the 2010 168 film project. And I was going to get around to asking Thor, and I never did. And I thought, well, I'll ask him now. I sensed something like I can ask him. Like, go ahead and ask him. And so I did. And he graciously accepted. And we didn't know it at the time, but what became of that 2010 168 is the short film Skip Listening. Because with the 168, you get a theme for the year,
right?
And then there's a verse assignment night, and then you get your team's Bible verse that's related to the theme. Then you can start writing. Well, we didn't know any of that stuff when we first embarked on it, as far as what it was going to be. It turned out to be Skip Listening, which, side note, we now have a feature-length script for Skip Listening as well that we're hoping can get funded soon and shot and in the can and out for the world to see.
Wow, and so from that was birthed Church People.
Well, yeah, so when we were prepping to shoot Skip Listening, Thor basically told me that he had this script called Youth Group and that he wanted to direct and star in it. And then while we were shooting Skip Listening, he changed his mind about directing and graciously allowed me to direct it. And that's literally, that's how I initially got the gig. And then later in 2010, we did a proof of concept trailer for the script that he had at the time. And I pitched that on social media and so forth, on and off, for like 2 years. And Stephen Baldwin saw it on Twitter and reached out asking how he could best support our vision for the project. And basically, eventually, I'm making a very long story short, but eventually came on board to help us find the funding. And 3.5 years later, after he came on board to help us find the funding, Mike Lindell had it fully funded by that time, and we were shooting at that time. So,
well, I'll tell you what. Now, you know how I don't know if it's that way now, but in the past, TV used to add like 10 pounds or so to you. Well, it has the opposite effect with time. What seems to be only 3 minutes is actually 8. So we're running out of time on this segment. So what we're going to do is take a break and come back, and then we really want to hear about the specific movie, which is what I was hoping to hear now. But we just got so excited about how it became to be. So let's hear a little bit about it so that people can know where to find it, how to watch it, and all that. All right, folks, don't go away. We're going to be right back.
%80 of Americans want more family-friendly content. 80%. So what's the solution? 24 Flicks on Demand. That's right. 24 Flicks provides unlimited, safe, family-friendly content without profanity, nudity, sexual content, and substance abuse. You can enjoy movies, TV series, comedy, sports, and so much more. Simply go to 24flix.com. 24 Flicks. It's your home for unlimited, family-friendly, on-demand videos.
Dad? This is a lot of work. It might take us the entire weekend.
You think this is rough? Try building one of the most massive wooden ships in history without modern tools.
Go ahead. Think bigger.
YBL is an experience like none other. Whether you are thinking about a call into leadership in ministry or something else.
I would do it again in a heartbeat. I learned a lot about having self-confidence in myself as a leader. Even though we're teenagers, we still have the power and the capacity to change the world.
God can do amazing things in a very short amount of time. The material that we studied, the activities that we did, really helped us to see that.
Going to YBL and hearing from professors that are my future professors and professors now, coming to Asbury is really like a continuation of what Youth Becoming Leaders was.
It was really important having a group of people my age who wanted to do what I wanted to do. We kind of end up as a family, which is the best thing I think about YBL.
back to Faith on Film. We are here and we're going to find out all about what this movie is really all about, because it's called Church People. What does that mean? Is it all about what church people are like? Hey, Christopher, what is Church People all about?
Well, Church People is about America's favorite youth pastor, played by Thor Ramsey, Pastor Guy Sides. And he finds himself caught in his megachurch's marketing machine, and he feels like he's being eaten up by it, and he just wants to break free and get back to preaching the gospel. But he's surrounded by zany characters like his over-the-top senior pastor, who wants to literally crucify somebody for the Good Friday service. And so, obviously, Thor's character thinks that's blasphemous and doesn't want to have any part of it. And so he's got to navigate that. And then he's also got to navigate around. There's a really interesting character played by Joey Fatone. You may know him from In Sync or the Big Fat Greek Wedding movies. But Joey
or
Fatone,
Dancing with the Stars.
Or Dancing with the Stars. And Joey Fatone plays a worship leader who basically thinks his life is a musical and does what he can to perpetuate that. So he sings about half of his lines, and he's a cornball. So he's surrounded by these zany characters. Then there's the love interest, the senior pastor's daughter, comes back from a missions trip, and he doesn't recognize her, and so there's a spark there, et cetera, et cetera. Zaniness ensues, and of course there is a redemptive arc throughout, and there's a redemption for multiple characters, and it comes to a poignant climax.
Now, I got to admit to you, I have not seen the film, but I did see the trailer. And one of the things that I kind of picked up was that it almost seems to be, in a funny way, a rebuke to the mentality of the new modern church. Maybe not so much the mega church, but pretty much all churches that are just kind of are more concerned now with the marketing aspect of how do I get people to really want to come to my church.
How do I get more souls in the seats?
Right.
Is basically how Pastor Skip puts it. But yeah, it's a gentle rebuke. It's a satire, but it's not a mean satire. It's not. Okay. We're not lambasting the church. Mm-hmm. It's a gentle rebuke satire. So there's lots of laughs, and there's a poignant climax, and there's even laughs, peppered throughout that as well. So, yeah, go see Church People.
Well, okay. How can they go see Church People?
Well, so I believe at the time this airs, there's still going to be time for churches to host a showing of it. Nice. So if you go to churchpeoplefilm.com and click on the button that says host a showing, pastors, church leaders, organizations can go through that button. That takes them to a forum for Faith Content Network. And they can see if their facility qualifies to host a showing. It's a ticketed event, but it doesn't cost the host anything to license it or anything. Okay. And I believe they get a portion of the proceeds of the ticket sales. So there's host a showing, and then on that same homepage where you click the button host a showing, scroll down to the bottom of churchpeoplefilm.com homepage and sign up for updates. Because as far as home entertainment options, Amazon, all that stuff later. So churchpeoplefilm.com, host a showing, and sign up for updates.
All right. And what if they want to follow you personally, maybe just find out all the other things that you're doing? How would they do that?
My website is ChristopherShawnShaw.com. That's SHAWN Shaw.com. ChristopherShawnShaw.com. Also, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/CSS301.
Alrighty. I highly recommend, number one, that you guys see this movie. Go talk to your pastor. If you're not a pastor yourself, go talk to your pastor and say, Pastor, we need to have this movie on. And of course, if it's beyond that, if your church didn't show it and that whole process ends, then definitely find out how else you can watch it and watch this movie. I think it'll really bless your heart. Christopher, like I said, time just flies when you're having fun. And I got to tell you, I had fun. I had fun having you on. And I really, I'm sure you've got some new projects lined up. You already talked about a script that you got ready for maybe making that one short film into a full feature.
Skip listening.
Skip listening. Yeah. So I wish you all the best, men. Blessings to you. And thank you for taking the time to be on today, all right?
Thank you so much for having me. God bless you.
Folks, don't go away. We're going to be right back.
Love the classic movies? Well, 24 Flicks has you covered. You can watch some of your favorite movies and TV shows you've known and loved. Watch anytime and anywhere and as many times as you want. Simply go to 24flix.com and start watching now. 24 Flicks is your home for unlimited, family-friendly, on-demand videos.
Meet Will. Will wants to make a movie based in Bible times. No, maybe a Western. Well, maybe an apocalyptic movie. A biblical era apocalyptic Western? That would be so original. But Will needs some sweet sets to bring it to life, and Will is 25,352 miles away from any of those sweet, sweet sets. Or so he thinks. Fortunately for Will, there is a solution. Introducing Capernaum Studios, your ticket to realistic locations and everything else you need to bring your period-accurate story to life. Book a tour today, like Will, who is, yet to leave.
You know they say it's really big.
What's really big?
An Ozark, silly.
Oh, I know. It's bigger than the size of our house.
It's a little bigger than that.
Like the size of 2 houses. No, 2 houses and a spaceship. I bet it's even bigger than the castle.
Don't be ridiculous. That's impossible.
This summer, think bigger.
Welcome back to Faith on Film. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. I want to remind you that whatever TV station or network or streaming platform you are watching this program on, just write them a little note and say thank you for carrying Faith on Film. Also, if you're watching it on YouTube, just go down and hit that little subscribe button. It's right down at the bottom of the screen, and that way you'll be aware of every time new shows come on or whatever else I may start to put on the platform. So just go down to that little button and hit subscribe. And of course, don't forget, I'd like to hear from you. So write me at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. Until next week, take care.